And I grew up in a household of musicians, and the people in my living room during parties were just thrilled and amazed. I'd like to, of course, don't need an introduction for Miss Josephine Bugers. How are you? We're so honored by your presence today. Nolan Shahid, welcome. Benjamin Wright.
Harold imitated and never duplicated Harold Jones. I don't know who this woman is. She keeps hanging out with my band asking me to sing. I don't know. Josephine Bieber. The one and only Nolan Shahid. A man we keep behind the curtain because if it wasn't for him, well, he would scare everyone in front of the curtain. But if it wasn't for him behind the curtain, you wouldn't have anything to listen to. Steve Genowick, who is our audio recordist. So this is Q&A time, and for any of you, we have a person in each aisle.
A to point B. But it took a life of its own. It evolved into this what I call a love story. This was our first attempt at filmmaking, so we really didn't know what we were doing. But we did what we loved. We brought the people together that we loved and could tell a story with us. And like I said, it was just organic. It just took on a life of its own. This love story was really a labor club, was it not? So that's
why we're not paying you.
We have another question here. Josephine, with your wonderful background of being
about this record he had bought on eBay, and the singer happened to be Laura Joy.
And it was a transcription disc. It was just a one-off that they used to make in the back of the music stores or record stores. So it wasn't a manufactured disc. It was just a one-off.
Mm-hmm. It was like a 78. I know you know what a 78 is. Okay. And so I guess it was like cut like they do the 78s, right? And anyway, so I had just, this is really, really very sentimental, emotional for me. I had just buried my mother a week before. This was September the 20th. And this happened just a week after that this gentleman sent this transcript to Ed and wanted to know, do you know who this is? He tracked us down through my website because I guess he put in Laura Joy and I came up. And so Ed told him, oh yeah, that's Josephine's mother. And there were only two songs that I ever had that my mother recorded. I didn't even know I had that. One was Soon, and the other was A Foggy Day. So we put those two on the album as a tribute to my mom.
First we gave it to Steve.
Yeah, right.
And Steve took the other rhythm section out and turned it into that we just had a vocal track of Joe and of Joe's mom singing solo.
Yes. So what we did, people, you're thinking of the Natalie and Nat Cole, who they did a dual album. But this is a little different in that I was the older voice, I was the vintage voice, and my mom was the young 25, 26-year-old voice. So I'm the vintage, and just to sing with her and to put this magic out there, it was just a very sentimental thing for me, and I really, really think it turned out pretty good, Ed. What do you think?
I think so.
Yeah,
So it's going to be fun, and it's really fun to hear because there are times you can't tell them apart, and then you certainly can see where she got a lot of her stylings from. So yeah, it's quite a. So that was the story. I just needed you to tell the Laura Joy duet story. So
yeah. It was very interesting. Very.
Can you hear me, people? I guess you can. I was just been playing with the young lady here for a couple of years. But I think it'd be interesting for you all to hear that she stopped singing when she was, a young mom, raised her family, and then started her career again. So I really admire her, and I think she should have some applause, okay? She's really coming up. She raised her family, and then she resumed her career.
And Charles, I say that she did that on purpose so she had less time to be a has-been.
And we have a question here.
Would be enacting the laws and the regulations that they are, and that the NAACP has put out a travel warning to African American citizens to not travel to Florida. And I sort of said that sarcastically 6 months ago or 8 months ago. Jesus, sort of caution my tail. It's coming true before our eyes. So I think this is something that we all need to address, and maybe
I think the Green Book, I started traveling at 13, and I kept track. I still, some of the people who are still here, I still communicate with. But we wrote little notes, and when I was back home, I would say, when I was in Albuquerque or when I was in Big Springs, Texas, I stayed in Susie's house, and here's her address. And of course, the telephone communication wasn't as it is now. But we would have a phone number or address you could go by. You got to be even straight there, not divert any place else, not go to another restaurant or another home. So straight to that place, and they would guide you. So it was kind of a communication that way. And we just kept little notes, little pieces of paper, and we shared as we travel around the country.
First of all, I'm just excited to be here. This is really heavy duty for me. Josephine, God bless you. Ed, I don't know about him. But what happened for me, these two people arrived at my door.
we're trick-or-treating.
And we talked. I knew Ed from Chicago. Great. Super Ranger. I'm good. Okay. I wanted to come to LA. My hero in LA was H.B. Bonner. I didn't know a bunch of cats, When I got here, I kind of evolved into the recording scene, and I met Nolan. I don't know what his name was then. It's been changing every month. But he's a bad cat. He's a bad cat. And I would like for you to acknowledge something, because he just got out of the hospital a couple of months ago. Was it? Yeah. And not too many of us knew he was in the hospital. So I'm just so happy that I'm one of the ones that made contact. I think I worried him to death. And I was supportive. And so we need to kind of look out for each other. And we really need to look out for each other. Okay.
Thank you.
But anyway, I don't know why we don't have that problem anymore. I guess they're making us. Yeah, I'm telling you. Yeah, but I mean, it was very important back then to know where you were going to go to eat and to sleep. Fortunately for me, I was the youngest guy on the Count Basie band. So I mean, they already knew where to stay. And I didn't have any kind of problems. And we had one white guy in the band. And when we go to the black hotel to check in, they say, well, what about him? And they basically, somebody say, oh man, nobody's as good as him. and that was his pass to come right on in too. And I mean, like you say, they were making the money because they were in the business as a hotel. But I've been in the bands that we were integrated, and yet if we couldn't stay at the same hotel, the white guys could go to the black neighborhoods, and we usually did. And I mean, the guys, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Paul Winter, but when we were representing the United States, we couldn't stay in the same hotel in Miami. And so, that was a State Department tour, yeah. So, I mean, there was a lot of these guys, when I traveled like around the South with a band like Roger Williams, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of him. He did Autumn Leaves, the original Elevator music. And we had our own personal bus. We'd drive down to find a restaurant. He'd have the manager get off and go inside, check out the conditions. And if it was okay for me to eat there, he'd come back out and get us off to go in and we could eat. And I remember they were having a breakout of the flu all through the South. And mainly, it was only the white people that were catching the flu. And
it's all good. So my job was just to capture what they were doing. And, you know, knowing what the show was and what it was about and all that, I think, you know, even though when you're on the set and you're doing it, it's very technical and you're just getting through the day and doing the best you can, but you do always have that in the back of your mind. Like, this is a little bit bigger than just the musicians on the stage and the microphone on the hi-hat and all that good stuff. So there was a bit of a weight to it. There's, you know, you always want to do a good job, but when it means something, you want to do a bit of a better job, if that makes sense. So it was just great, a great honor to do it. And I think it turned out pretty good.
Just dealing with me. As a kid, 16 years old, living in Greenville, Mississippi, the first hotel I ever went to was the Peabody. It was big time hotel. The Ducks. Earlier years, I didn't want to go, but it was my gig to conduct the orchestra. And it has happened in many, many places. I'm sure everybody up here has similar stories. It needs to come out. It needs to come out. That's the way I see it.
And also, Benjamin Wright, we worked together before, and HB has done a lot of arrangements for me. He did one of the first arrangement of my first big hit record, which was Band of Gold.
Yeah!
Back in 1970. And I experienced it when I was 17 years old, 9 o'clock in the evening. And of course, I was in awe of all the neon, and then we started stopping at motels right on the strip. And it would say vacancy outside, and then Mac Ferguson would go into the motel and come back out, and he says, they say they don't have a vacancy. So we go to another one, the same thing, another one, the same thing. I said to him, then I'm thinking, I'm sitting in the back seat, is he stupid or something? He don't want us here. So we saw this guy walking down the street, black guy. And my mother said to him, my daughter is here to sing with Duke Ellington, and he's appearing at the Riviera Hotel. Isn't Duke Ellington the band? Aren't they staying there? He says, oh no, ma'am, they can't stay there. They're probably staying over on the west side. They call it the Dust Bowl. So we got on a payphone and called the West Motel, which was owned by Dr. West. And the whole band and Duke Ellington, they were all staying there, so that's where we went and stayed there. And then later on, this was in 1961, I would like you all to address the years you're speaking about. Because obviously, some of you are thinking about before they signed the Emancipation Bill for civil rights, which occurred in 1964. So my mother and I, we could not stay on the Strip. But after Duke left, the band left, I was able to get booked into a hotel casino. It was located right across the street from the Sands, and it was called the Sans Souci. And I got booked into the lounge, and it was free to pay with the Mac Ferguson trio. And we of course rented a house. We stayed in Vegas for another 2 or 3 months, and I worked on the Strip. But I couldn't stay on the Strip at that time. Now, when I finally got to stay on the Strip was when I was working at the Thunderbird with Larry Steele, Smart Affairs. And this was around 1964. So we were able to stay at a motel on the Strip. And from that point on, I was able to stay on the Strip and motels from that point on, and then, of course, things changed after that. But that's my experience. And there were places by the way, because I'm from Detroit, and Detroit was okay, no, nothing like that. There was no segregation or anything like that. But as we drove from Detroit going to Vegas, and you're going through states like Texas, Arkansas, there were places where Mac would go in and say, oh, we can't eat there, but we can go around the back, order some food and go around the back and pick it up. And I used to think to myself, who the hell do they think they are? Yeah. Who the hell do they think they are? I said enough, I've got more, but that's okay.
Home. And you know how the freeway is, the freeway, the highway is just one lane. So what I did, I got on the dirt, because there was a line of cars, and I'm just spinning along the dirt, and then I found out why there was a line of cars, because the front was the police. So naturally he pulled me over. The first thing he did, he made me sit there 2 hours till all the cars had gone by. Then he asked me, what was I doing there, boy? I said, I was a musician. He said, well, what do you play? I said, I play the piano. He said, okay, so then he said, oh, well, I've got to search your car. Go with the car. I've got a trumpet in there, saxophone in there, clarinet, all these things in the trunk. He said, how about you play the piano? I said, well, I can play some of those too. He made me play for about an hour. And you know what I played? I played this song.
That's the producer in it coming out. See, it was even then as a kid. So what year was your first year on board?
I went out when I was 13. That was 8 years ago.
We can do this, don't do that.
First year was like,
and better than this and better than that. But unfortunately, we have never been able to do that. It's always been, we are looking towards something else. We are out completing a picture, and the picture over here is doing great, but it's like the old adage, jazz is America's only true art form. Well, that kind of takes black people out of what they created. So you can't really stand on that too strong. You got to make sure that you understand that it was innovative, created by young black people, and that's very important. So, I hope that answered your questions. The children's circuit was not so much integrated until near the end. It was pretty much segregated. But I remember in the 50s, late 50s and the 60s, it was like H.B. Barnes said, there would be a line down the middle. I remember that. I remember that. And all white people would be on that side, and all black people would be on that side. And occasionally, it would get so good, and Little Richard would be so bad, that all of a sudden that rope would fall. How would it ever gone? Yeah, and that rope was gone, and people didn't care about nothing, man. They were just dancing and jumping, and that was a good thing.
We're going to take a minute and thank Josephine Beavers, Ed Bodica, the Grand Songbook Media.
About this project was, it's the Musician's Green Book, that's the name of it, but the subtitle is An Enduring Legacy. This is our legacy right here, right on the stage. They endured those times. They're here now, very active in what they do. And the music is the magic that keeps us doing what we love. And my message is to you is if you can love what you do and do what you love, or do what you love and love what you do, you can stay around as long as these guys have, really. This has all been a labor of love for all of us. And also, I have to thank my partner in crime. For over 40 years. He's been met in grade school. No, but he's been my partner in crime for that long. I started out with him, just doing a few things here and there, and he stood by my side and guided me and mentored me all the way to where we are today. And I just have to give him, I just can't repay you for what you've done for me and what you've given me. You've given me really my life back, because when I lost my husband 7 years ago, I was thinking, what am I going to do now? And I just said, I have to make my life happen. And I said, I'm going to do that. I said, so I thought about Ed Bodica, who'd been by my side all that time. I made a phone call, and here we are.
And cheer up. Come on. And I want to add one note to what Josephine said. In addition to standing on our feet and cheering on, go see them play.
It was to jazz, and we went on the road, and the hotel bill was $10 a night, and we couldn't afford it. With the hit record.
2018. 2018, really? Yeah. 2018.
Well, you mentioned getting a late career site.
Yeah.
1967.
You don't count.
It's been a long time.
He's got his own mic EQ, his own engineer.
Well, I want to go back a little bit and talk about an experience that I had when I was with the Buddy Rich Band. I guess it was, I don't know, 1969 or something like that. And we were in Chicago, and the bus, we could look out of the hotel room and see the city burning, because it was just rioting and going on and carrying on like that. And I was hanging out with my buddy, Walter Namath, who was a guitar player. He's a white boy. And
Why do you look at me when you
I have no idea. And I asked myself that evening, because the bus driver was kind of a racist. He drove us back from the gig because it was Buddy Rich's band, and he was happy that the ghetto was being burned down. So he was having a good time. He was kind of a racist in his own right. So I asked myself that night, I said, do I hate all white folks? I thought about it for a while, because I had some issues myself. And the only reason I could say no, I didn't hate all white folks, is because my guitar player was a white buddy, and we just loved each other. He could have been green, and I would have loved him, and the same way. So that was one of the most uncomfortable times in my life, and it helped. It made a better person out of me, because from then on, it's just, if a cat can play, that's all I give a shit about.
You did ask me how old I was. And we have a.
Me then, if you hadn't worked through that.
You didn't ask me how old I was when I first hit the road.
How old were you when you first hit the road?
1979.
Wait, I gotta add something. I feel so young around you guys. Oh my God, everywhere else I am, I'm like the old guy. But you all make me feel so beautiful and young. And it's such a privilege to be here with you. It's unbelievable to be standing with bits of royalty.
I'm going to be an inducer, what we would call it. Most of you don't know who you've been talking to or listening to or whatever, but you got Ben over there, writes hit songs for all of the great people. So you might have to check him out on Google. He's tremendous. And you got H.B. Barnum, who he came out to Los Angeles to meet, to learn. And H.B. Barnum is a great arranger. When I was just about ready to go into the post office and give up on music, I went in his office and auditioned and played all my instruments, and I got lucky, and he started using me, and he helped me raise my family. That goes on about 20 years. I always appreciate that. And then you got Harold Jones here. Now, who's Harold Jones? You have to Google him too. He's one of the greatest drummers that ever lived. That's who you're listening to, talking to, and that's who's playing on the music tonight. You got some really great seasoned people, and we got my cuz here, who's a great runner. He has his own studio, and on top of all of that, he's a sensational trumpet player. So that's the kind of guy. He was the narrator there, talking about the children's record and all that, but he knows what he's talking about. He's a tremendous, very dedicated man, and when we were doing some of this, he had cancer, and he went down to Tijuana and got cured. And with the we all know how to fight through stuff and stuff like that, and I had to talk a little bit because I just wanted to know what type of people you've been listening to. These aren't just poop butts. These are really very dedicated, serious people that have spent their whole lives doing what they do, and they do the heck out of it. And I'm blessed to be up here and know all of these wonderful people. And I just met this guy who recorded us. It takes a team for this stuff to work out, you know. But anyway, thank you all for being here. I'm going to bring it up and give it back to the boss.
And we have one last question in the back.
Very, very importantly, but how many Grammys, Steve? Oh, that's it. Because I keep taking them. I've got them on my mind.
And we have one last question in the back.
Yeah, congratulations. Oh, fuck. Just lovely. Now I just crazy.